It is episode 4 here on Decatur Dish. Welcome back to another episode where we cover all things DeKalb County and more with none other than Decatur-ish Dan. Now, for those of you just watching this episode for the first time, maybe you haven't seen our previous episodes, which are available on AtlantaNewsFirst.com and in the Atlanta News First app. I'm Maria Moreau, joined by Dan Wisenhunt, the founder, editor extraordinaire of Decatur-ish. For those that are unfamiliar, Dan, what is Decatur-ish?
Well, it's good to be here. 4 episodes. Wow, we're just rocking and rolling. Decatur.com is a local news website. We are based in Decatur, Georgia. We cover Decatur, Avondale Estates, Kirkwood, Eastlake, Tucker, Clarkston, Stone Mountain, and the greater Decatur area. We are locally owned and locally supported and locally sourced news.
And this episode is something that, or this segment, I should say, is something that you and I came together and we decided, what a great way to offer people all of their headlines, catch them up on what's going on in DeKalb County, a community that is constantly growing and developing and has some bizarre and interesting and good and bad stories coming out of it that you all do such a great job covering. So this is your one-stop shop, Decatur Dish, to get caught up on all things DeKalb County. Now, previous episodes, we've had guests on the show. We had a full election special that we brought to you. Today is more traditional. We're going to take you through some of the top headlines, but before we get into them, I do want to recap the election. If you missed it, we want to make sure that we get you caught up on everything that came out of that. We talked about some DeKalb County issues that were going to be on the ballot, as well as some mayoral races. One of those issues, Dan, was the DeKalb County 1 cent tax. Now, you know about that a lot more than I do. So that was a huge issue for voters in this county.
Yeah, well, it's a sales tax for road and building construction. It is passed overwhelmingly each time it's been presented, along with the homestead tax exemption. People like road construction and people like tax breaks. So it seems to be a popular item that comes up every year, and it keeps getting passed, and the voters don't seem to have a problem with it. I've never seen any organized opposition to it, so I wasn't surprised by the results this year. We also had some homestead exemptions that passed in the city of Decatur that was specific to that city as well.
And I wanted to bring up a little graphic we put together here. So you can see the votes that came in. I'm going to bring my lower third down for you. An overwhelming amount of people wanted this special purpose local option sales tax, and like you mentioned, the homestead option sales tax as well, 77% to 23%. So lining up on both of those issues, a lot of people saying, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's a pretty popular thing to build and construct roads. God knows DeKalb County has a lot of backed up infrastructure, and they're going to be spending some of that money on other projects this year. So there's a lot of popular support for it. People like to see things getting done in their county.
And speaking of some major things to come out of this election cycle, the mayoral races. We had a ton in DeKalb County, and I want to start with the Stonecrest mayor, Jasmine Cobble, winning an overwhelming majority, 76% of those votes. She's the current Stonecrest mayor. So looks like another cycle for her in the chair. We also have Doraville Mayor here, Joseph Gierman. I believe I was told to pronounce his name like fireman.
Okay.
So if you need to know your mayor, Doraville, fireman, Gierman.
Gotcha.
Mayor Gierman, 69% of the votes, current incumbent. So a similar pattern here, a lot of people holding on to their seats. And then we get into the Brookhaven mayor, 43% going to H.J. Park. Congratulations. Now, was there anything for you, Dan? You follow these elections closely that surprised you?
Park and Kiefer are going to be in a runoff, so neither one of them cleared 51%, so that's going to be December 5th runoff. There's also going to be a runoff in the at-large seat for District 7 in the BOE, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we got a couple of runoffs. It's a low turnout election, so you got to factor that into it as well. These local elections typically don't draw out as many voters as they should, and if you didn't vote in this election, I hope you feel shame because you should. But the Brookhaven race is interesting. John Park resigned a city council seat to run. I'm curious to see what the outcome of the December 5th runoff will be in that race. I do wonder to what extent the recent annexation effort in Brookhaven played a role in some of the turnout in those elections. Some other results that I was surprised by, Clarkston returned most of its incumbents to the city council with the exception of one, Laura Hopkins, who will be replaced by Mark Perkins. Clarkston went through a pretty tumultuous time in recent months with its city manager. On the flip side of that, Stone Mountain ousted some of its incumbents this year and elected new members, which I would interpret to mean that people are a little bit tired of the small town drama and politics in Stone Mountain and just want to see the city move forward. And I think they were holding the incumbents accountable for some of that. So there's the results in Stone Mountain. Decatur has a new school board member. Decatur passed their homestead tax exemptions, as I mentioned earlier. The parks bond in Dunwoody was pretty interesting. That actually failed. There was a referendum to issue a bond money for more parks. Based on what I've read in a rough draft and their reporter there, apparently that bond referendum was kind of targeted by a disinformation campaign related to it potentially being used to defund the police, quote unquote, somehow. Not sure how they got there, but it just goes to show you that in a low turnout election, it's pretty easy to put your thumb on the scale and get a result that you might not expect. So that is why it is important if you care about local issues, if you want to see good things happen in your community, if you want to elect competent leaders, you need to go out and vote in these local elections. They are very, very important.
And if you wanted to see more of our election coverage, thank you for that distinction about the runoff. Very important, Brookhaven heading into a runoff, as well as some of the votes on issues that impact your community. This is available on our website at landnewsfirst.com. I know Decatorish.com, you guys have comprehensive election coverage on your website as well, so please make sure you check it out. If you didn't vote this year, you have another chance to redeem yourself and, like you said,
December
feel a
5th.
little shame.
That's right. Feel that shame. Get motivated. DecaturishVotes.com is our link for all of our elections coverage, by the way.
All right, let's move on to some of these top stories. I want to start with this one. Possible act of arson is now the question among authorities. They are looking into a fire investigation at a Decatur medical clinic. It's a historic building that houses gender-affirming care services, among other things I want to clarify. But right now, the big question, was it a target of arson? I know you guys covered this on Decatorish.com. What do we need to know about this?
Well, everybody's being real secret squirrel about it. That was the first clue that something was off. The fire happened on October 30th. We did not know about it until November 1st, and the only reason we knew about it was because a source tipped us off, and we started asking questions. The fire department of Decatur did not officially acknowledge that the fire occurred until November 2nd, and that was after we posted a story showing the smoke damage. Again, very limited information. Another source slipped us a police report that showed that it's being investigated as a first-degree arson, and the target is believed to be a service called QMed, which provides gender-affirming care at that building. The Blair Building is on the National Register of Historic Places. It's a funky-looking building. It's behind Twain's in downtown Decatur. You've probably seen it. You might not have known what the name was. And there's been a renovation ongoing for the last couple of years, and it's taken a lot longer than the tenants expected, and now this happened. So there's a lot going on over there. There's a lot of secrecy around it too, which of course, every time somebody acts secretive about something, that just makes me want to pull the thread even more. So that's where we are with that story. We're going to continue to follow it, continue to file records requests. I certainly, hope no one was targeted, and you hope for the best in these situations, but clearly that is something that people are investigating. Apparently the FBI has also been notified as well. The FBI sent me an email, said they couldn't confirm or deny whether they're actually investigating it. So a lot of moving parts, not a lot of people talking about it. So we'll see where this one goes.
Now, this has come up a lot, and it's a more broader topic, but with transgender representation, transgender healthcare advocacy comes to conversation a lot, and then you hear about a building like this that offers those types of medical services, and now Arson. Now, I want to clarify, we do not know at this point whether it has been targeted. The police report, again, is preliminary. Those things develop constantly, but it was interesting, as you said, to learn that this was possibly being looked at as arson, and then hearing that it was a medical office that houses gender affirming care.
Yeah, well, the transgender community is going through a really tough time the last few years. They're under attack from all kinds of different directions, and there's a lot of heated rhetoric around it. And so, unfortunately, it would not be surprising if this sort of a thing happened. Again, we don't know. The Georgia Equality provided a statement and said they don't know, but they're treating it with caution as well. So it's just a reminder that words matter, and the things that you say matter, and you have to be careful when you're making a political argument that you're not dehumanizing other people, because unfortunately, it can lead to acts of hate against certain communities. We don't know if that's what happened here, but that is the context in which this happened, so it's important to note that.
I know you guys will continue to follow this closely.
Oh, absolutely.
One other topic that seems to come up time and time again, the conversation around housing, and this particular story, we talk about missing middle housing projects. And if you don't know what missing middle housing is, it reintroduces opportunities to construct duplexes and other units like it in single-family residential zoning districts. Now, in Decatur, there was an ordinance that went into effect on June 30th, and since then, the city has issued 3 building permits for missing middle housing projects. What is the significance of something like this?
Well, Decatur hasn't allowed, and to be clear, missing middle housing is quadplexes and duplexes and triplexes. Those exist in Decatur, but there weren't any new ones that were allowed to be built for some time. And the thought is that there were a lot of absentee owners of duplexes and triplexes and quadplexes. Actually, when I first moved to Decatur, I lived in one of the few duplexes that was there. It was on Patillo Way. So the thought is, as Decatur, like a lot of communities, struggles with this availability of affordable housing, the thought is that perhaps creating an additional housing type, whether it's a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex, would provide some more naturally occurring affordable housing by creating some options. Decatur has actually limited the number of affordable of missing middle housing that can be constructed. I believe it's limited to 15 through December 31st, 2024, and that is to give the city time to sort of study the impact, see how many permits were issued, see what got built, and kind of go from there.
And, with the issue of affordable housing, that's something that's not new to DeKalb County, Decatur certainly. You guys continue to follow that issue closely as it impacts more and more people, it seems, each year. What other, from the top of your head, measures has the city of Decatur taken to address affordable housing?
Well, they're doing a giant affordable housing development at Legacy Park, which is on South Columbia Drive. It's a property the city bought in 2017, I believe. They have an inclusionary zoning ordinance now, which mandates a certain percentage of all new developments has to have a percentage of affordable housing. The interesting thing going on with the missing middle housing piece I wanted to note is that there's no requirement really that these units be made affordable. And so one of the reasons that they have limited the amount of permits they could issue in a year is to see what kind of happens with that. Because there's one school of thought that says, well, if they're sharing a wall with somebody, it's not going to be as expensive as your traditional detached single-family home. There's another school of thought that says if a developer can get $4 million out of a $1 million home by dividing it 4 ways, that's exactly what they're going to try to do. So it's going to be really interesting to see what developers do with this, what types of housing products they construct, and whether it actually furthers the city's goal of creating more affordable housing. If it does not, I think you might see some more strings attached to the missing middle housing policy going forward.
And I'll add, we never know when you or your loved one or a friend are going to be impacted or find yourself needing affordable housing assistance and what have you. So this is really an issue that impacts more than the people that are directly benefiting or being impacted by this. It's really a community-wide issue, and one I know you guys will follow closely. We'll also continue to bring you reports on Atlanta News First, both on air and online.
Absolutely.
This next topic has been just circulating around social media. It's been talked about within the DeKalb County community, and it centers around a very popular mall, the North DeKalb Mall project, getting a $70 million tax reimbursement. And what that means is we could possibly see demolition soon. Is that correct?
That is the word on the street. I called Decide DeKalb and asked if I could get $70 million. And fun fact, they told me no. Told me that wasn't available to me. But then again, I'm not a developer building a multi-million-dollar mixed-use development. The idea is to compensate the developer for the construction of certain infrastructure improvements they're going to need to have in place to make this thing go forward. And North DeKalb Mall was popular back in the day. Now it is mostly a metaphor for late 20th century capitalism. There's a lot of empty buildings there, not much going on. It's been used as a filming location for a while. During the pandemic, it was used for drag racing. Now, prior to the demolition, a lot of people are parking their 18-wheelers there because they got to park them somewhere. But we should start to see activity very soon now that this funding has been lined up and is provided by the Decide DeKalb Development Authority. I would add that this is pretty common, although this is a large amount. This is what development authorities exist to do. They exist to incentivize giant transformational projects such as the North DeKalb Mall, which will be renamed Lula Hills. There's a lot of debate about whether that's a great name, but again, it's not my project, so I'll refrain from giving my opinion on it. But all the drawings look very nice, and there's apparently going to be a nice trail and some nice amenities going around it. So we'll see what happens. For those of you who don't know, Edens also owns that Toco Hills development. And they've got a really interesting mix of national and local retailers. They've got the Spiller Park coffee shop, which is more of a local coffee chain. So it'll be interesting to see how this project moves forward and what kind of tenants they bring in. I know a grocery store is one. There's going to be some medical tenants as well. That was mentioned at the meeting the other day. It's going to be a big project. It's going to take about a decade or more to be fully realized. So, my grandkids will love it, I'm sure. We'll all enjoy it whenever it's completed. It's not going to happen very quickly, but it is going to start happening soon. You're going to start seeing dirt moving very soon over there, I think.
And I wanted to hang on to something that you just said. This is going to be a mixed-use development space, and those medical facilities, those healthcare facilities, Emory, the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, the Center for Disease Control being in the nearby area is going to have possibly a heavy influence, or at least a benefit to be in that proximity within something like this. I did want to bring back just for a moment these renderings and pictures. As you can see, that's the hope, that's the vision, but it's a matter of how it's going to impact things at the end of the day.
The renderings always look nice.
Yes.
I would, for my cues on what it might look like, I would definitely look at the Toco Hills development, see what if they actually constructed, to get a sense of what that might. Obviously, this will be way bigger than that project is, but it'll give you a sense of what this developer prioritizes and what their aesthetic sensibilities are, and what we might see at North DeKalb Mall. But as always, things change. The economy does what it does, so it might impact the development as well. So we shall see. But as of right now, it's pretty exciting stuff. That mall has been in a bad way for a long, long time. So it's exciting to see something new and different come to fruition over there.
All right, Dan, the people are going to email me if I don't ask this question. What is going on with that pig in Kirkwood?
It's a pig. It's real cute. My notes here remind me to tell you that the pig is cute. His name is Chip. He is apparently a very smart pig. He likes to get out and have his little walkabouts. What more can you say? I mean, it's like Charlotte's Web type stuff. It's a little girl and her pet pig, and they're just the darlings of the community. The pig was in the Mardi Gras parade this year. It's just a great community story. You know, it's what we like to do when we're not writing about these big fancy mixed use developments. We like to write about popular local pets.
And hey, if you haven't heard this story, this probably all sounds very confusing to you. So I'm going to throw it out to our Atlanta News First reporter, Sawyer Bussey, to have you formally meet Chip.
Chip is a member of the Todd family, named by two sisters, 9 and 12 years old. The youngest wanted a pig for years, and eventually her wish was granted.
He is about a year and a half. He was born July 2022.
Due to a recent turn of events, other families in the neighborhood have also fallen in love with him.
And he eventually did become potty trained, so pigs are really smart. He used a litter box. He's very curious, so we did decide to make him a little pen outside.
The family says Chip escaped his cage for the first time about a month ago.
I may say run away. I would call it more of a walkabout because he comes back.
Katrina's neighborhood friends helped her get Chip back home, but Chip figured out a way to open the gate.
It's never a problem. The main thing is he's usually hungry, so it's easy to get him to go anywhere.
He saunters down the street, meeting families in the neighborhood. Katrina tells me people have fallen in love with Chip.
Kirkwood's so dog-friendly already that a pig is just an extra enjoyment. I don't think he annoys anyone. I think people are just happy to see him.
The families in this area have a new mascot.
I mean, we love him, so we think he should be loved.
In Kirkwood, Sawyer Bussey, Atlanta News First.
All right, so that's Chip. Now you know. Cutest pig I've ever seen.
I tend to agree. Just a heartwarming story. I will say I am actually, my next door neighbor is a pig. His name is Cooper. If you keep feeding them, they don't stay that size. They get rather large. But I get neighbors ask me all the time, "What do you think about having a pig as a neighbor?" And I usually tell them that pig is one of the best neighbors that I've ever had. Never asked me to borrow money. Always happy to see me. I usually keep carrots in my fridge because every time somebody's working on the street, they come by and they're always taking pictures of the pigs with their cell phone, and I keep carrots. And I'm like, if you want the full Cooper experience, you got to feed this pig a carrot, and it's just adorable. You know, it's fun to go on your morning walk and there's a pig. There's a giant pig, and it also gives me a lot of comfort knowing that if there's ever a drought or a famine or any kind of hardship, that I've got a delicious pig that lives right next door to me.
Well, serious journalistic question for you. Do you think Chip and Cooper would get along?
I do think that they would get along. They both appear to be on the same wavelength, pretty smart. They got a pretty nice setup. Maybe we should get them together. We could do some pork play dates. Get them in the same pen, see how they interact. I like this idea. We can open up a pig daycare.
Hey, if you guys see Chip or Cooper, for that matter, out in the community, please snap a picture and tag us. We want to see all that stuff. Social media is blowing up over Chip, so why not add to it, right?
I agree.
All right, thank you for joining us here on Atlanta News First Plus for this latest installment of Decatur Dish. We want to keep you up to date on the latest local headlines, things happening in DeKalb, things happening in Metro Atlanta in general. So where can people find you, Dan?
Well, Decatorish.com is the website. Decaturishvotes.com is where you can get our campaign coverage. Locally sourced news.com is where you can sign up for our email list. You get a daily email that goes out. It has an RSS of our stories from the previous day. We've got a great events email that goes out on Monday, and we've got the Dish email that goes out on Friday. It's kind of the best of every week, and a lot of what you see in the Dish email is what you're going to see on this show. We also have a fall fundraiser going on right now at supportyourlocalnews.com. We're trying to raise $25,000 by December 20th, 21st, and we're at about $11,000. So we really need your help to get there. We would do this for free if we could, but we can't. So visit supportyourlocalnews.com and please make a contribution to that fall fundraiser today if you're watching this. Also, if you're watching this, I'm going to need you to download that Atlanta News First app that's going to have episodes of this show and all the other great shows produced by our media partners at Atlanta News First. You can get it on Roku, Fire, you can get it at the Apple Store, you can get it on Google, anywhere that you can stream content and download apps. You can find the Atlanta News First app. It's a great looking app. It's got a lot of great stuff on it. I encourage you to download it. Great way to support us and great way to support our media partners at Atlanta News First.
And you can find more Decatur Dish episodes on Atlanta News First Plus, on our Roku, Apple, Amazon devices like Dan just mentioned, but also you can stay up to date on all things Atlanta and DeKalb County on AtlantaNewsFirst.com. Make it a great week. We'll catch you next week.
Bye-bye.